You're listening to episode 310 of the Small and Supercharged podcast with Ria Freeman. On today's podcast, we are joined by the lovely Sophie Gregory, who you may know better as farmer_in_training or farmer in training on Instagram. I've known of you for quite a long time, but it's actually my mother-in-law one day that said, oh, I've listened to somebody you have to have on your podcast. I was like, oh, here we go. Because I thought, bless her, she does listen. So hi, Chris. And I thought, okay, interesting. Like, she's an amazing gardener and does kind of amazing things like that. And I thought it's going to be something gardening, and I don't understand plants beyond grass. And they said, no, you will love Sophie. And here we are.
Oh, it's so nice to be asked. Thank you. Well, I think I followed you from Wife on a Farm, you were doing workshops. She's so lovely. You were doing workshops at her cafe, weren't you? Is that right? Were you helping her?
Absolutely. We're hoping to do more, but I have completely dropped the ball in sending dates over. I'll be perfectly honest with you.
Oh no, she's so sweet, and she was sharing. And did you help her with media stuff at the beginning as well, or did you just? I don't know. I found her that way.
She's amazing.
She's great. She's so much. I've never met her, and I must go to the cafe because I drive that way quite a lot to work things. But I just haven't ever made the time.
Oh no, you must do. Willow Barn is amazing, and it's just off the M5. So it's not miles away. I mean, I don't know how she does it. I've got 2 kids and 1 business, and she's got 4 children. And the cafe, obviously, she does work with the farm. She does glamping. I don't know where she's finding the time or what she takes to do it.
No, I know. She's really amazing. So yeah, I was thinking that when I next go up north, I will stop on the way.
Definitely reach out to Steph. So Sophie, tell us all about you and what you do, and then we'll get into your journey because it's not conventional.
No, so I'm Sophie Gregory, and I'm married to Tom, and I've got 3 young children. Say young, Harry's not that young, he's 15, 12 and 6, and dairy farming 10 years now. And I'm first generation. I was an accountant before, but we are in Dorset, Devon border. We're organic, about 400 cows milking, supply Arla, where a lot of the milk goes to Year Valley, McDonald's, Tesco's on an organic contract. But yeah, that's a small summary about me. There's lots of other bits, but that's me in a nutshell.
So when sometimes we think of people's jobs and like possible side steps, I don't know how common the sidestep from accountancy to dairy farming is. Although actually, when I was talking about Steph, she used to be a solicitor. So maybe I've misjudged this altogether. And it is a route that professional, like those kind of traditional professional industries then take. Or tell us how you got there.
Yeah, so I think I had my eldest even when I was 19, and I would have probably gone to university, but that wasn't an option. So I needed to find something I could do like part-time. And I've always been quite good at maths and quite business orientated. So I thought, well, maybe accountancy. My dad has always said, and I tell this to my kids as well, that like, I think it's like 60% or 70% of top CEOs are either engineer or accountancy trained. So I was like, okay, that's what I want to do. I'm going to go and get a profession before. It doesn't matter if I actually don't become an accountant as in practice, but at least then I've got something, and it's something I could do a day a week through Open University. And it worked around Harry, my eldest, and my mum had him a day a week. And then I had to do 3 years of that, and then I went into a firm part-time, and then was doing some more studies alongside that. And then we took on a dairy farm. So Tom had always wanted, his dad sold the cows at 10 when Tom was 10, and it was just like quota and all of that. It was very difficult. And so Tom had had this bee in his bonnet that he wanted to go about dairy farming, which I just thought was crazy because I had no understanding of cows, no interest, knew it cost a lot of money, didn't know anyone making money out of it. And I just thought we're living quite a nice lifestyle. Tom was foot trimming, so he was on quite a good wage, like piece rate. We had a comfortable life, and I was trained to do my exams. But this farm came up, and we went in with a business partner. No, we never would have got it without. a lot of people, the milk price was very good at the time, and a lot of people were looking at it. And we ended up getting it. I think it's probably a combination of having us as the energy on the ground, and then a business partner, a successful dairy farmer as a business partner who had a track record. And also the fact we wanted it to be organic. I think the landlord was quite happy, because it would have meant that we wouldn't be able to sort of grow maize in front of his house and like all of those things. It just suited the farm. It's quite a, I mean, it's quite a wild farm in places, if that makes sense. It's like, there's some great bits of it, as in like really productive bits, but there's also some like marginal land as part of it. So it just suited our system. So yeah, when we came to the farm, I carried on my job, and it was just a nightmare with 2 young children leaving early. It was before COVID, so no one worked from home. You had to be in the office really, like, we say 9 o'clock, but it was really 8 o'clock. So, and paying for childcare for 2, they weren't at school then, paying for childcare for 2 was, yeah, I couldn't get back in time to pick, them up, and it just wasn't working. So one day the cows got out, I helped, and then ended up milking, and then loved it. And I just loved it more than my job. And we needed more people on the farm, and it just meant that I could get up early, be back in the house, take the kids to school when they started school, and just fit it around. So it was right for our family at the time. And I then just fell in love with it. And it's definitely, been a huge part of my life since. I spent the first 7 years really like absolutely knuckled down, not doing anything else apart from dairy farming. And now I do quite a bit of other stuff as well, but dairy farming is like my main thing. But yeah, that's how I did. So it was a combination really of, and it's probably, I think if you ask anyone that's come from a like professional career into it, it's often because the partner has a home farm, and also it's a child thing, because those professional jobs but pre-COVID, they were very demanding on office, like being present in the office. I know I could do my job now from home, my old job from home, but that wasn't, at the time, was not an option. So it was a rural accountancy firm. So I was dealing with farmers, but I didn't really know anything about farming. Does that make sense? I was countryside born and bred, but I definitely didn't know how to milk a cow, or didn't really know how many litres a cow would give, or any of that stuff, what to feed it. So it just became sort of a natural progression for our family that I ended up on the farm.
So when you first took on the farm, I mean, how many cows does a person start with? I've got 2 sheep, so I basically feel like I'm a farmer, and that's ridiculous. I love the sheep. But because if you didn't have an experience in cows, obviously your husband did, because as a foot trimmer, I imagine, well, he's around them all the time.
And he'd been like reliefing on others, so we knew we were going to go dairy farming at some point. So I suppose he'd been relief working on other farms at weekends and stuff, just because he knew we wanted to do it. So he had a pretty good grounding, but not enough, we'd not done it ourselves before properly. But we were lucky, a really good business partner who came once a week to begin with, then once a month, then once a quarter, and then we've just bought him out actually. So we were 20% at the beginning, put 20% equity in, he had 80. Then we bought him to 50% through cash flow in the first 4 years. And then we bought him out 1st of April this year. And then we started a new tenancy on our own here. But we started, back to your question, we started with 280 cows in one block. So it was going to be 280 cows on, it was just under 600 acres. We were rearing all the heifers, all the replacement cows. So any young stock here on farm. And then we sort of grew, bit more land organically came up locally to grow us some feed. So we took that on. Then a 300-acre farm came up 7 miles away. So we took that on. And then we started rearing the heifers over there. So then the cows became 350 at home, and then they've sort of just grown naturally to 400. We've taken 300 acres on of arable it's this season. So we're running that as well, so Tom really does the arable side. I don't have anything to do with the arable side. It's owned by my godfather, and we're contract farming for him. Right. So I just keep out of that one really. I don't understand soil or anything like that. He's way more interesting on that stuff. But the cows are really my thing. Tom does a lot of grass stuff, soil stuff. I've got a really good main girl, Lottie, and then I've had a really good girl, Paige, over the summer, who's at college, but she's been with us for 2 months, all of summer. And then I've got a girl called Coral who works part-time because she's at college as well. And then Sam's full-time for us. He's been with us 3 years. He did an apprenticeship and he's just finishing that off now, but he's going to stay afterwards. as well. So he did a lot of the tractor driving and the arable stuff. We do quite a lot in-house. So yeah, it's a young but mainly girl team.
Feels unusual. Is
Yeah. I think it's because I was the one employing the team. Not that I have anything against having guys on farm, but I probably attracted girls to the job because I was a female boss. You know, I used to run the cows, and up until I left for my first Nuffield travel. So I'm doing a farming scholarship at the moment called Nuffield. Up until I left for my first travel, I was running the cows. You know, they were my responsibility. So I think I just attracted other girls, as in they wanted to work for another girl. I don't know. It just happened. I found them easier to work with. Also, I do think girls are really good with animals and stock and stuff, and they really like the clean, quiet, calm. You know, I've had guys working for us who've been clean and quiet, and Sam's great as well. Everyone who works on the farm has to be able to milk the cows. So if someone's ill, like Sam will come and milk. You know, he doesn't do it regularly, but he knows how to milk the cows, because that's just what it is, a dairy farm forefront. Like that's what, you know, brings the money in. So that's like the focus point is the cows, and then everything else has to, you know, fit in with that.
So how did you feel about I mean, the thing is, I think animals are different. And if you decide you're going to become an engineer, a job that doesn't involve live living things, like you've got chance to kind of mess it up, and no one dies, hopefully. But with animals, it's a really sharp learning curve, and let alone when you're not even just starting with like a couple of cows or 10, you go straight in for 280. How did that learning curve look?
I think we were so lucky. I think without having that business partner structure, I think the other options for us to start dairy farming were a council farm. So like a small scale council farm would have been like 100 cows. But I suppose we had the equity at the time because we'd been saving, because I had a job and Tom had a good job. So we were just saving. And also we had a high welfare RSPCA veal, which we reared. So we built stock and stuff through rearing basically bull calves for our business partner, because he was shut down with TB. So it's like a really good outlet for him. So we took them and then finished them at like, maybe I think it was 9 months, but they were housed, fed like constant, you know, ad lib with straw and stuff, but they were high welfare. You know, it was a big thing at one point, well, not big, but they were trying to make it a big thing, veal. So we did that. So we built capital that way. So we had capital to go, and I think it was either go do it on our own or find a business partner on a bigger business, with the thought that long term that we would end up with a bigger business, if that makes sense. Which has worked for us, but it's been hard. It has been really hard work. I finally feel like not the pressure's off at all, because it's been a really difficult 18 months with organic milk price, but I feel like I'm at the point where I don't panic about making decisions, if that makes sense. Like I'm like I have like faith in my own decision making on like I've got enough experience now. But I think if like the council for one of us would have definitely had to have worked off farm, it wouldn't have been probably big enough, 100 cows for both of us, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Not that I planned to be on the farm, but it probably just would have ended up just Tom on it. And also those council farms don't actually come up that often, or like in the area, and some councils are selling them, and yeah, it's and also the income from that wouldn't have been as big as income from 280 cows, even though the share and things. So it was just a better opportunity and nice part of the world. We moved about an hour to where we are. And farms like this don't really come up. I've only known 2 others like in the southwest that have come up this size since. And our business partner took on one of those. So
wow.
they don't come up this kind of size in one block very often.
No, completely. What did it feel like when you sort of decided you were going to leave accountancy behind and completely change what you were doing?
I think it was sort of a gradual thing, that I wasn't doing much. I suppose I didn't do a lot. It was sort of like I dropped a bit and then I took up a bit more, and then it was calving, and it was like, you either got to go for this or we need another member of staff, because like we have busy, because we block calves, which means that we calve everything in one period of time. Well, we have 2 blocks,
Wow.
but we have 7 weeks, well, 8 weeks of really busy, like 300 cows calving, and then another block which is like 8 weeks with 100. So that's where we are at the moment, and it's not as pressure. Like I can have like a few a day, or one a day, or it's not a big.
Gosh.
That's not a big stress. But the 300 in the 8 weeks is full on. So we were either it got to the point where I had to make a decision that we either needed to employ someone else because we needed someone full time, or I needed to, I couldn't really do it part time. So that was when I just was like, right, I'm going to take control of the calves. Calves are actually quite a good way to get into it without, because it's, I could fit it around kids and stuff. And there was, calves can be hard work, but it was like we put in protocols, and I was able to follow like instruction basically with them. And I cared. Like I love animals. Like I've always had horses, dogs. My mum was a vet, so I've been around animals like all my life. So I have definitely have a caring element. But I found the calves, and it was a good way for me to see, like, rear a load of calves that then ended up in the herd. So I could follow them all the way through, which was really good. But the thing is, I've always kept my accountancy up because I still practice, as in I do our own. So I have to have someone else sign them off because obviously I'm not allowed to sign my own off, but I take ours through to pretty much someone just checking them. So I've kept in that way, and I know, and I've kept my letters and things because if I ever did need to go off, we went sub 20 milk price or something, 20p. I could just go and earn some money quickly. People always need accountants. Like it's like a doctor, isn't it? You need accountants, farmers, doctors. You do need these. So I just, I've kept in with it. I've made a point of that.
But I imagine that your accountancy knowledge, your knowledge of numbers and how businesses work, I mean, that's got to have been so useful with what you do. The sheer volume of stuff you have to deal with in the role as a farmer. You've obviously got the cows, you've got their cost, you've got the milk prices, you've got the running cost, you've got the staff costs. Has that level of business knowledge been just incredibly valuable?
Yeah, super valuable, because I think farmers can sometimes be guilty. Like we haven't been able to do this because we've always had rent to pay and we've always had a business partner keeping us accountable. But I think sometimes we can be guilty as an industry of not seeing it as a way of life, not a business. And because we've always had, like, we've got a high rent, a fair rent, but it's a high rent. We do budgets monthly, we do costings, we always had quarterly meetings with our business partners, so we always had things that had to be done. And now is going to be a test for Tom and I, because we haven't got that accountability partner. So we haven't got a business partner that takes 50% of the profit, and we have to be accountable to every purchase. So, this next year will be a bit tricky, I think, for us, because we're thinking that we probably will get we've agreed that we'll get a mentor, not mentor, but like someone in between us that we can both have discussions with, because I'm way more risk adverse than Tom, whereas Tom would like to take on the whole of the UK, that's, or the world really. But you know what I mean? So we need to have someone that sort of says, oh no, that's a good idea, that's not a good idea. So I think it's been super useful for me. Even in my, so I do some, I'm on a couple of different boards, and being able to read a set of accounts is just so useful. Like debtors, creditors, balance sheet stuff, like just really like margins. It's super helpful in any business. Farming is not separate from business. Like it's a business. It has to be, not. Yeah, it's got to be treated as business. Yes, we live here. That is the bit that does make it different, because we do obviously have an emotional attachment to the farm, because we live here right in the farmyard. Like we're right, like just behind the milking parlour. So there is an emotional attachment. It's very hard to switch off from the farm fully, and I don't think I fully ever switch off when I'm here.
I think as well, I mean, we're lucky we live rurally. We've got 3.5 acres, and we've got a horse and the 2 sheep that I love very much. Yeah. But we're surrounded by farmers, and they're absolutely delightful. Actually, they're such good eggs, and like they help me with hay and hedge cutting and things like that. They're really good eggs. But as you say, there is that emotional attachment. You live on site, but also particularly when you are a livestock farmer, there's real creatures there who need to be checked on, who need care, who need attention. You can't just put it up, pick it down, No, that's not even a phrase. Put it up.
Oh no, yeah, it's welfare, isn't it? There's a whole angle of other things, and I think it is difficult, but I think as an industry, we have to be very careful about what picture and what image we put out there, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
on how hard we're working, because we're actually at risk of putting people off joining the industry, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
If people think it doesn't make money and it's just hard work constantly, how are we going to attract people into the industry? You know, it's not an easy, it's definitely not, it's not an easy career, but it can be really rewarding, and it can be good financially. Like I went into a school, we could do quite a few school visits, and I went into a school about 6 months ago, and they were really shocked, the teachers, because they were asking, you know, what does a herdsman, which is someone who look after the cows, what would a main herdsman be paid? And I said, you know, maybe 35 to 40, like depending on your herd size, plus a house. So like a house in a nice area, you're talking at least £1,000 a month. So that, you know, those teachers were like, that's a lot more than we're paid. So I think people don't realize sometimes, you know, that it can be well paid. And if you like living outside, you know, like working outside, be a really good career. I'm not saying it's easy at all, but I think we have to be very careful, like we say about the emotional thing, that we don't portray that we're working 24/7. But there are times of the year, and some people do have to work 24/7, but we have to, we do try to encourage the next generation. We definitely have to, you know, we have to attract them rather than put them off. I'm very aware with my kids that I sometimes, especially during calving, that I'm like, oh, it's hard work, you know, I'm up early, and then, you know, maybe I'm a little bit snappy or whatever, but I have to be aware that you know, they're looking at me thinking, oh God, I definitely don't want to do that as a job.
Yeah.
So we have to be careful about that, don't we? That it's, yeah.
Do you think the kind of press around farming and the sort of media attention in various different ways contributes to people maybe backing off the industry a bit?
I think we're coming through that now. So I think that whole vegan thing, I was a little bit worried at the time when the first sort of strike, you know, we had activists around milk factories, things like that, when it was at its hype, maybe it's like 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, and it was really trendy. Oatly was a massive thing. It was gaining shares of the milk market. I really think that's died down quite a lot. I'd like to think people are understanding a bit more since, I think it was probably longer than that ago about the vegan thing, because COVID, it's all such a blur, isn't it? COVID, I can't even work out how long ago it was COVID. But I think COVID brought people home and eating at home a lot more. And I think dairy actually did really well in COVID. So I think some of that stuff was a fad, if that makes sense. And yeah, there is some negativity in the press. There's always going to be, like, you know, there is always, and that is difficult. But I think that I was at a show yesterday. We did we take these wooden cows, and we have this tent called Discover Farming with a committee, and it's a group of farmers who go and showcase what they do on farm, but within this tent. So we have these pretend milking cows. Someone else is doing wool spinning. Someone's making apple juice. We've got puzzles. We've got butter making, like loads of different activities. Brilliant. But like seeing how many kids were interested in farming in that tent, and like also how many young farmers there were. So like how many there were, like Canterbury short, you know, that kind of Canterbury shorts, and they all seem to have mullets at the moment, and like, you know what I mean? Like I could see farming looking cool again. Like I actually feel like farming is becoming cool again. And I think some of that, you know, I think I do. Some of that's Jeremy Clarkson. Some of that is, you know, different, like the regen movement. Maybe some of that's that. There's quite a lot of farming, like what you'd call influencers. I don't know if you call them that, or I don't know, but there's some really cool people involved in farming, and also who've like set up on their own. So like that started out on their own. I've got quite a few friends who are from online that have like started their own businesses, really cool businesses. And you wouldn't look at them and think they're farmers. That's the thing. Like, I think the identity of a farmer is changing massively, which is good, because actually the average age of a farmer is still very old. And that's quite scary. I can't remember what it is, it's 60s. And I think that is changing at the moment. Obviously, there's so much work to do on that with supporting youngsters into farming, like food and farming on national curriculum. Don't start me on that. But there is so much that we need to do on this. But I think actually the image of farming is changing at the moment. I'm seeing so many, like I could employ we get approached a lot about people coming to work, like apprenticeship, like people doing apprenticeships looking for a work placement. And that to me signals there are people wanting to come into the industry. So
Yeah, definitely. No,
I'm excited about it.
that is really good. I was actually going to say, what do you think Jeremy Clarkson's done for farming? Because whenever I've been asked about it, I do the odd bit on radio and TV about, PR disasters and PR wins.
Yeah.
And if I ever get the opportunity to sing Clarkson and Caleb's praises, I do, because I think what they have brought to people in their front room is, well, some of the realities of it. There used to be a thing that, you never met a poor farmer. And then, of course, it went the other way, because a lot of these estates are kind of inherited, aren't they? And people get given these big houses and these loads of land, and therefore they must be rolling in it. But actually, if you scratch the surface a bit, that's not always the case. And I think showing, how much it costs to run these things properly, all the hoops you have to jump through. I mean, I remember watching one of the Clarkson's farms with his fertilizer costs. I mean, it was just staggering. And I thought I think personally, that whole program and that series has been so good to show people just a bit behind the curtain. But I'd obviously love your point of view as an actual farmer rather than me as a,
I mean, I think it's been exceptional. And actually, the really interesting thing is that I've got friends who aren't farming, like lots of friends who aren't farming, not many of my friends are, who say, is that actually really what it's like? Like the understanding, the appreciation for what actually goes into it. And also, interestingly, I've been in America for 3 weeks as part of my Nuffield travels, and a lot of them have watched it, and they said, I cannot get over your food standards compared to ours. As in, like, what's asked of you compared to us. And that really got to me, because I always think, oh God, well, we just moaning for no reason, not moaning, but are we just like getting cross about all the stuff we have to do for no reason? As in, like, it's not like we shouldn't, like, maybe everyone else is having to do this, but actually really no, it's totally different over there. And actually most countries I've been to, most European countries, if they're part of the EU, have got regulation, just because that's come through that way. But America, Brazil, like, I'm not saying the welfare standards were low at all, but the actual ask of the farmer was very different. Even from TB, all of those, it was really, and I think they just couldn't get over it, and they just thought some of it was made up. They said, isn't some of this made up for TV? And I said, absolutely not.
I mean, again, going back to Clarkson's farm, I have obviously heard of TB before, and the really devastating effect it can have on people. And I mean, I don't even, when we think about emotional attachment, or the time you give to them, and then something completely out of your hands can change the whole situation. I mean, how do you cope with that, like mentally, let alone practically?
I think the big thing with the TB, we had a period that we've had 2 periods where we've been down. One was when we, like, a year into starting. I think that's probably because we bought from so many different people, and they probably had a clear test and then not a clear test, mingling, new cows and new environment. And that was shocking. And especially as I just had no idea what was going on. Like, I just didn't really understand it at all, but it was financially shocking. But the big thing is that I don't feel like we've, like, the testing is not very accurate on the skin tests and things, and most people will say that. I think we'd be more confident and able to deal with it if it made sense, if the way we were doing things made sense. There's loads of tools in the box, but things like the vaccination and things for both badgers and cows, but obviously more importantly to me as a dairy farmer, cows. If we could see an end sight to having a solution like other countries have had, I think it would make it easier. But I think, especially for the ones that go clear and then in and out and in and out, it's just mentally destroying. I mean, as a dairy farmer, we're lucky we can still sell our milk, but obviously it's the loss of the cow that then you can't easily replace. And it's some of these people. I've got a friend, James, who they've built that herd for years and years. So when you're talking about taking cows, you're talking about generation of breeding from grandparents to, that is not just a cow that's born on that farm. So it is, yeah, it's right. And some of them don't come back as having anything. It's just the test, they are getting better with the tests. There are other tests, there is tests in development. It's just the fact it's out of control as well. It always feels like it's out of your control, that part of it. And also it's not anything you can do as like, it's not your skill, it's not your, because you're not being a good farmer. It's nothing, it's not anything like you're not doing a good job. It's because it's actually external from your business. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is. And it's massively, we're in a high risk area. So, the neighbours go in and out the whole time. We expect that we're going down, but if we go clear, it's a bonus. We have had, we had a good 8 years out of 10 that we haven't been down, which is touch wood.
Touch wood, yes,
Been
definitely.
okay, yeah. Especially as we're running quite a big herd, it could spread quite quickly, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah.
It's like, it's nose to nose, there's lots of ways it can spread, but yeah, it's devastating for people.
Yeah.
And because of that emotion, like we spoke about earlier, that emotional, and you living on the farm, you can't really get away from it. And it's the emotional attachment to those animals as well. Because I think sometimes there's this image that farmers don't really care about their animals because they're sending them to slaughter as in like for beef and stuff. And our dairy cows go when they're finished their job on the farm, they do go for beef. And there's that association of like the farmer can't care about its animal, but clearly we do. It's soil destroying when you have to send them for not a fair reason. Then they're not actually utilized is the thing as well. It's such a waste of an animal.
Completely.
Yeah.
Completely. So obviously you do lots of other things as well. You've mentioned this Nuffield Scholarship program. Can you tell us a bit about all the other stuff that you do?
Yeah, of course. So up until about maybe 3 years ago, I was doing a lot on the farm. And actually, I suppose Cecily, my youngest, is 6 now, so she was only 3 then. So I then had a friend who'd done Arla. So we will supply Arla, which is a European cooperative, and they have like what's called like a board of representatives. So it's like 28 of us in the UK, and then each country. So it's in Denmark, Sweden, and then CE, which covers Central Europe. So it could be like Belgium, Germany, like they all come under one. So we have elected boards. So I just saw what they were doing, was really interested, wanted to use my brain in a different way. So I stood for election, and I got elected, and then I got involved in the organic committee as well, because we have an organic committee. So that's 2 roles. And then this term I joined the NFU, which is National Farmers Union, their National Dairy Board. So that was so I didn't have to get voted for that. That was a interview. So they had some nominal positions where anyone with a skill set missing from the board, like if there was a skill set missing, then they put a thing out, and then they said, we had an interview and I was successful. So I've got that, and I chair a few. So I just quite involved in the Soil Association Exchange, which I chair their farmer group. And I also chair some stuff for, I just started working on a biodiversity part of the dairy roadmap, which is like a combination of NFU, AHDB, which is our levy fund everyone pays into, like whether you're a beef farmer, pork farmer, beef, pig, cereals, like we all, and then that money gets put into like research or events or like lots of different things. And then so it's and Dairy UK, so it's a combination. So I'm chairing a group which is looking at biodiversity. It's looking at everything from water through to measuring biodiversity on farm and carbon, that kind of stuff. And then one of my favorite things I'm involved in is Discover Farming, which is a charity set up locally. It's associated with a local show, and we basically have a classroom as well. We are having a classroom built at the moment, but this is a classroom that's owned by the Discover Farming committee, and we go in and do assemblies in schools. We do all the careers fairs locally. We host school visits at the classroom, and then we have this big show day, which was yesterday. And it's just about getting people excited about where their food comes from, whether that's learning to cook or whether that's offering bursaries and grants for further education in ag. So like you can apply, I think it's up to £3,000 to support you in your, like if you're going to university or if you're doing college, but it's got to be to do with agriculture. And part of stipulation is that you pass your exam, you have to put effort in, and we interview for that. People apply and then we interview them. They have to live within 12 miles of Melplash to be able to be considered. It's quite a farm heavy area where we are, so a lot of agricultural. So I'm heavily involved in that and I love that. We've also got a cluster group which I help set up, and we sit on their that's, we can meet 6 times a year. It's a local group of local farmers, beef, sheep, dairy, all different systems. And we share information between us, and we have things from we had an owl talk, we had they brought loads of different owls to the village hall. We talked about different breeds and things, species, and then we've had we had a cider one, we've had a herbal ley one, a soil one, lots of different things. It's a social thing, and we also do measurements on farm to help, if we ever want to sell carbon or anything like that, or baseline stuff, then we work together as a group. It's a big linked up amount of land, so basically it's all linked together. It doesn't matter what sector you're in agriculture, you can be part of the group as long as you're sort of in a link with us.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, lots of different things, all sort of all linking into either education for kids in farming or my board work I love, because I meet people, other different systems of dairy farming, because we're quite, not unique at all. We're organic grazing, but I didn't really know much about housed herds or conventional, grazing herds, or all year round calving herd. I've learned so much, and also learned so much about how the cooperatives run, if that makes sense. So we are, it's a huge cooperative, 8,000 members. So it's a massive business. So that's just been super interesting. And we go to Denmark twice or 3 times a year, depending on which year it is. And then I go for 2 other committees that I'm on as part of that. So I go, I get to go to Denmark 4 or 5 times a year, which I love. And it's a really, it's a beautiful country, and it's just meeting people. I love, I really love people, and I think otherwise I get quite isolated on the farm. Even though I've got a great team, I think it gives me a refresh and it makes me better at my home job, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. I think that's the thing. Community is so important, however you find it. I mean, that brings me rather beautifully onto social media and why why you use social media. Because you're clearly an incredibly busy lady. But communities and that kind of collaboration, whether it's through being on a committee with somebody else, or being on a board, or meeting people, or social media, is so important for our own sanity, let alone the sharing of ideas and the growth and development of what we do. So how does social media fit in with all of this for you?
I think it's about I suppose it's about sharing life on the farm without having to without people who haven't been able to get, if they live in a city or they can't actually get out on farm. It's a great way of being able to connect daily and understand where your food's from. I just do it because I enjoy it, and people, one day also probably we will do something with our milk, a small percentage. So I've got a base level of people locally and probably nationally. I don't really know where everyone's from, but some of them I do. But I've got people understand there's a story around our milk. They understand what they're getting. I'm not selling it direct at the moment, but I might, we might end up doing a cheese or a yogurt or something at some point. And, it's really, so someone yesterday came to the show, and they were on holiday down here, and they absolutely loved, the 3 boys loved milking the cows. And I said, they were like, oh, the lady actually cried. She was so
Wow.
she just loved it. Anyway, they were from Berkshire. And she then, I said, do you want to see it in real life? I said, tomorrow afternoon you can come to the farm if you want to. So they just came this afternoon. 3 of them. So they saw a cow calf, milking, they saw everything. I showed them around. I mean, I had to move cows around anyway, so it wasn't a bother at all. But yeah, it was just seeing their reaction to it. And I just thought, I'm so privileged to be able to see this day, most days, that, it doesn't take a lot for me to share it online. And if it gives one person, some of my staff have come from social media. So like Paige has come from social media, Lottie has, Sam actually did as well. All three of them have. Coral did too. So yeah, so all of our staff have come through either Facebook or Instagram.
I was going to say, has anything good come out of social media? But actually getting incredible team members is clearly a really, really positive thing.
Yeah, I mean, positive. I've made some great friends as well. Some like friends that I know personally, like we meet up and stuff. Yeah, like really, and like-minded, because no one else in our local area really farms the same as us, but I've linked up with others in the country that are farming the same as us. I just enjoy sharing what we do. And I think if it makes someone think, oh, maybe I will drink dairy rather than, nut milk or whatever, then it's a job worth doing.
Yeah.
I'm not in it to do collaborations as such. I do work with one company, but that's really, I help them with their social media a bit. So, but it's something I'd use anyway. But I'm not, I'm not keen to start selling stuff as such. I just want to share our story as much as I can. And then if it gets people in ag or eating dairy, then yeah.
It's bigger than a business. It's definitely more of a, well, no, it is a business, obviously, but it is I want to say a mission, but that's not the right word. It's like a calling, isn't it? From speaking to you and watching your content, it's bigger than just the business side of it.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely. I'm not worried about the numbers on it at all. I just I couldn't even tell you how many followers I've got. I enjoy engaging with people. People are so positive. I've only had a couple of negative things from like ages ago, and I never rarely have rude. I used to get a little bit when I was off farm, people being like, why aren't you on the farm? Like a little bit of like, I'm not understanding that, but that's fine. Like I'm very, I'm doing this because this is important for my job, and I don't have to be tied to the farmer if that's not, doesn't make me any less of a farmer.
No.
So yeah, I mean, it's been pretty positive in general. I like Instagram because it's visual. So I'm like, I do use Twitter a little, tiny X or whatever it's called, a little bit, maybe like once a week. But and Facebook seems to link sometimes with Instagram. I'm not really sure. It sort of has a funny moment sometimes. So I probably need to get more streamlined at like lining them all up, as in like getting them all to do the same thing, like use a package or something. But then maybe that takes away the like personal element of it. I don't know. But my LinkedIn has to be a bit professional, because I do end up doing some talks or some stuff like that. It can't, like, I'm pretty open on my Instagram stories and stuff. I probably couldn't put that on LinkedIn, if that makes sense, like in that layout. But I put, I just update people on what I'm doing, as in like, I've been to America for Nuffield, I've learned this. Whereas if you watch it on Instagram, you get an end of the day update of, this is what I've done, like, this is how I feel, this is what this sparked.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And the thing is, with the different social media platforms, different content works because the audience is different on each of them, subtly, some of them. But as you know, LinkedIn is a business to business platform predominantly, although it has got a little bit more touchy feely lately. But that's where, you see that I've got a new job, I'm hiring, I've got this certificate, I've done this cool thing. Yeah, you see that on Instagram, but you also see the beautiful pictures, and it's a different place with a different message and a different end goal.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think that's definitely that knowledge around what works on which is important, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you can't, like, Twitter, you don't actually have the chance to write very much. So you have to be quite specific about what you're writing, because those adding like 1 out of 2 and then 2 out of 3, adding bits underneath. I don't ever read other people's, so I'm not sure anyone else does read.
It's a commitment. It's a commitment, having to read like 1 of 8 and you think, I haven't got the time for this.
Yeah, exactly.
So before I let you go, thinking about your journey so far to where you are, what have been the sort of highs and lows on it, whether it's from a business or from a kind of a personal being, you know, that media, you know, that media personality, that voice that's talking and standing up and going in front of people? What have been the highs and lows along that journey?
I mean, it's been hard work. It's been financially hard work because we've had to not make sacrifices. We have made sacrifices, but we both didn't really have a life for the first 5 years. But we were committed to that, if that makes sense. Like we were like committed to the fact that we knew we had to do that to get to 50-50.
Yeah.
But now we're way more, like Tom's away at the moment for 5 days. So it's set up and we're both confident enough that it just really takes one of us to run, if that makes sense. So we share it really. So Tom's off for 5 days. I went to America for 3 weeks. So we do take it in turns. And the kids are a bit older now. You know, Harry and Evie have been off playing tennis together on their own. It's not, it's a bit different than it was at the beginning.
Yeah.
So I suppose the journey has been our family started to grow up. They need us in different ways now. But also the farm is set up, like, I think we underestimate the cost and the energy needed to start a project.
Yeah.
So I think we've done the hard miles, not saying that it's not hard now, because it really is. But it's also, we're very much better at managing people than we were beginning. Like I think we just wanted people to turn up and do a job and not, we just didn't really know how to tell them how to do it. We were only 24 and 25 when we came here. So we're pretty young. We had 2 young kids and, we'd not really looked after a house. We'd lived in a very small house before, tiny little converted piggery, which was great. It was fine. It was a bungalow. It was absolutely fine. But it didn't, it was the whole thing. It was a big move for us. So we've grown as people, and I've gone from working full time on the farm to doing other stuff, and I think the variety is great, really great. But I mean, yeah, it's been highs and lows, definitely. And the milk price, you have to get comfortable with the fact that you can't control the 2 big drivers of your business. For us, our 2 biggest drivers of our business, I'm not in control of. A, milk price. B, weather. And so when you relax into that, as a grading system, we rely on having good seasons of grass. Once you relax into the fact it's actually not in your control, all you can do is mitigate things. So like having enough feed, making sure your costs are as low as possible. You don't get excited when the milk price is high and start raising those costs. Then I think that's the only way. You have to relax in the fact that you actually aren't controlled of those 2 things. You're not in control of those 2 things.
There's definitely a life lesson there. I know. I mean, I know I'm a devil for like trying to control the uncontrollable. And actually, when you do think, I think it's well knowing actually, whatever happens, I'll be able to manage it. I mean, as you say, when the milk price is good, you don't go, well, hey, we're going to spend everything. You think, no, I'm going to be careful with that, because then I can save it for that rainy day or time it doesn't rain, whatever way that is.
No, I know. And it is difficult because I think we're probably all guilty, aren't we, of living up, if we have a pay increase, we think, oh, we've had a tough time, let's loosen our belts a bit. You have to be on it, and or you have to invest. You do have to invest in the good times, but in things that will save you money in the bad times.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
If anyone's listening and thinking, I really do want to get more involved with agriculture, I'd love to know more about the business side of it as well. What advice would you give them, or what direction would you point them in?
I think so. Specifically dairy.
Yeah, let's go specifically dairy, or whatever your experience is with broader. But obviously, I know you're really focused on dairy.
I think the dairy. So if you're a youngster in dairy, then I would say the big one would be Entrepreneurs in Dairy. They do a course, so it's run by RADBF or it's Royal. Oh, I'm just totally going to get this wrong. It's, if you Google it, you'll find it. Entrepreneurs in Dairy. It's an annual course, and it does everything from business accountancy to like the actual hardcore, hardcore like stats on like fertility, how to get tenancies. They get experts in from like bankers to it's a really good course. We host it most years, so we didn't do it because it wasn't really a thing when we were there. But like if you're a youngster, then young farmers, absolutely. then entrepreneurs in dairy. There's some good books now. I mean, podcasts are great for learning about different, there's so many agricultural podcasts now. Put agriculture into Google. I mean, if you want to learn a different country, I mean, I love learning about what different countries are doing. My friend has one called Ag Culture, American farmer, and he just has different experts in it's normally every week, and I find that fascinating because it's just a different view on a different, totally different. But yeah, podcasts are great. YouTube's amazing as well. Like, it just, you can see some of them share numbers and figures and stuff on there, but there's some great YouTubers now. And obviously Clarkson's Farm gives a pretty open, honest view on running a dairy, well, not a dairy, a agricultural business, especially a diversified one.
Yeah.
But also just go and see your local farmer. Like, a lot of people are pretty open. And like, a lot of people who want to get into the industry, I always say, just go and ask a farmer if you can do a couple of milkings, or, just go and see if it's for you, because, some people it's just really not for. If you can't get up to an alarm clock, it's not for you.
No. But I think it's great that there are so many free ways that people can learn as well. I mean, obviously a YouTube podcast, going to see if you can help. I mean, learning on the job is incredible. And I didn't realize about the entrepreneurs in dairy being a thing either. So it's great that there are those specific resources developed for, rather than just a broad, let's do business, actually for that specific business that you want to go into. But is there anything else you'd like to share before I ask you all the places that we can all find out about you online?
I think that it's an exciting time for agriculture, like I was saying earlier. And I think that we just need to, if there's any farmers listening, just getting our gate open to having school visits, having your local MP on farm, all of that, getting that gate open. I know we are busy people, we don't have time, but please don't underestimate the impact you can have by having those people in position and power on farm, but also those kids on farm. It sounds like a really spread of people to have on farm, but those, don't underestimate the influence you can have by telling your story. And also with social media and stuff, just give it a go. If you think, oh, it's a free marketing tool. If you're selling direct on any product, you should be using it because it's free.
Don't you think though as well? I've so worked with quite a lot of small businesses on marketing, promotion, social media, and kind of business development. And so many people say, yeah, but what I do every day isn't very interesting. And I say, it's fascinating what you do every day. It's, if you have got
Absolutely.
a farm, if you have got animals, if you have got arable, just take us behind the scenes with you. Show us the stuff you're doing day to day. It doesn't have to be anything clever. You don't need special lighting. Just get your phone out and talk to us about what you're doing. I love that kind of content. I'm completely captivated by it.
Yeah. That makes me think the light darker in the room. Yeah, no, I think, I mean, I love watching totally different environments. Like, I'd love to watch a hairdresser, or like something like that would be fascinating to me. Do you know what I mean? Anything different, novel is exciting, isn't it? So
It
I
is,
think,
and
just day to day.
you're sort of behind that behind the curtain idea, just seeing, it's like getting to know the animals if you've got
Yeah.
sheep or cows, or talking to us about how the equipment works. Again, some people just don't have any idea at all. And it doesn't have to be some kind of feature length film or some expensive production. It's literally you chatting whilst you film what you're doing.
Exactly. Yeah. And it doesn't have to take time. It doesn't have to be edited or anything like that.
No.
Um,
No, definitely. I think, the more people can share about all industries, and it's definitely about farming, the more educated people are. So they can make the right choice when they go to the supermarket. They understand why milk costs what it costs. They understand why it's better to buy British meat. They understand what the different marks mean on the, the red tractor and all those things, because they've been educated about it.
yeah. I mean, I would agree with that. I think it's a very powerful tool used correctly.
Mm. Tell us everywhere we can find you online.
You can find me on Instagram, probably mainly farmer in training _ in between. And then Twitter, I think I'm under Sophie Applin or Gregory. I do use LinkedIn, but more for professional stuff, Sophie Gregory, and then Facebook. But I mean, it's the same stuff as Instagram. I don't do any special effort for that. But that would be the main ones.
Amazing. And you had that incredible no, it wasn't a podcast. You were on the radio. You were on,
Yeah, my farm.
that was it.
On my farm on a Sunday. Yeah, that was just such a good thing to do because so many people not in agriculture listen to that. Like
Yeah.
it's a real highlight. I'm not saying mine was a highlight, but as in like it's a highlight. I know my dad's generation, like it's a really something they look forward to. So it was a real privilege to do that and like be able to send a message about organic dairy and like what we've been through in the last 18 months, just raise awareness about, you know, about the issues and the opportunities.
And that can still be listened to on Sounds, BBC Sounds.
Absolutely. Yeah, on BBC Sounds, yeah.
Brilliant.
And yeah, I mean, there's lots on my page, there's lots of different things. But I'm always happy if anyone wants to send me a message on there. Then anything they're not sure about, then definitely do.
Thank you so, so much for joining me today. It's been a brilliant chat. I can't wait to share this with people. And I feel a lot more educated now as well, which is always nice.
I hope so, yeah. Oh, well, I've been a big fan of yours for a long time, so it's been an honor.
Thank you.